What's up, everybody? So this is my first ever live podcast. I wanted to go live and want to try to start going live every Saturday between 11 and 12 o'clock. And this is really to go over the top games of this Saturday. You know, you got Alabama, LSU. You got TCU team who's taking on Texas Tech. Yes, Texas Tech doesn't have the best record, but TCU still has to run the table in order to win the Big 12. You have North Carolina, who's 7-1, going against Virginia at Virginia. You know, they have to travel on the road. North Carolina has to stay undefeated in order to make it to the ACC championship. They have their destiny in their hands. You have Tennessee versus Georgia, the biggest game of this weekend probably outside of the LSU-Alabama game. Oregon, 7-1, going on the road to take on the Colorado team, 1-7. Penn State versus Indiana. And Indiana's not a shabby football team by no means when it comes to defensive ball. And Indiana was able to give Illinois its first loss. And Illinois is ranked 16 in the country. Oklahoma State versus Kansas. Oklahoma State is 6-2. Kansas is 5-3. This is a really prime time game for the Big 12 conference in general. I mean, Oklahoma State has not had a good showing as of late. Neither has Kansas. Kansas has dropped 3 straight. Granted, they dropped it to the number 7 team in TCU. They dropped it to Oklahoma by 10, and then they dropped it to Baylor. Both those games that they dropped back-to-back were road games. It's hard to win on the road, let alone at Oklahoma. But Kansas football program has come a long way. You know, Daniels has played good on this season. He was hurt when they went to Oklahoma and got beat. He is still questionable, but if he makes a comeback, I said this on my TikTok, I think Oklahoma State has the better team overall. I think they have the better offense. Their quarterback is healthy, and, you know, that's always something you want to take in consideration when you're talking about, you know, your teams. And it's not that Kansas has a bad backup quarterback. It's just you're going against someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience. Granted, they say Bean is a very versatile player, and he's a very athletic guy. I just think Sanders has more leadership. They were let down, and all their fans, the whole program was a big letdown last week. And I don't really like to talk badly on these young players. I mean, they go out there each and every Saturday and they perform what a lot of people couldn't do. But they lost to Kansas State last week, 48-0. And that right there is very embarrassing to see. Kansas State really didn't show up at all. Kansas State put up 21 in the second quarter and was phenomenal. Will Howard really carried that offense to new levels. You know, their running back, Deuce Van Gu. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. He's been phenomenal this season. He's one of the top running backs in the country, and he's played extremely well. But if Will Howard is at quarterback, Kansas or Oklahoma State, I'm sorry, I'm jumping from games. I need to slow down a little bit. Anyways, back to Oklahoma State. With Spencer being, with the leadership that he has, the experience he has on the field, if Jaden Daniels is not ready to go, Oklahoma State has this game. I know I was jumping the gun just a minute ago when it was coming to the Kansas State team. They've been extremely well this year. Kansas State has a really poised opportunity to really take the Big 12 back from TCU if TCU is not able to run the table. Kansas State has that team. If Will Howard is at quarterback, I feel like their offense is on another level. Defensively, they're the best defensive team in the Big 12. Texas has a good defense. When you talk about Big 12 defenses, the Big 12, is offensive team. Sorry about my rants, but the Big 12, want to mention real quick before I hop over to the ACC and Clemson, but the Big 12 has a lot riding when it comes to TCU. The Big 12 division is basically on TCU's shoulders. If TCU loses one game, just one game, TCU is out of the Big 12 is out of the playoffs. They're not going to put a 2-loss and 1-loss Big 12 team in the playoffs. The committee just does not respect the Big 12 like that. And I hate to see it because TCU has been extremely good this year. This is one of the best TCU teams I've seen in my lifetime I can remember. Granted, I'm only 20 years old, so... but as far as I can remember, this is the best TCU program that they've had. Matt Duggan, he's a extremely good quarterback. I think he's probably one of the best quarterbacks of college football this year. He's definitely in my top 5 when it comes to overall quarterbacks of college football. But yes, the Big 12 is on TCU's shoulders, I believe. Now, when we're talking about divisions and teams that have gained the division on their shoulders, Clemson's another one. Granted, I love North Carolina. I think Drake May is the best quarterback in college football this year. I mean, I'm sorry if people get mad about that. Drake May has played phenomenal. He's now 20-1 odds. He's number 5 in the Heisman. And like I've been preaching on him all year long, Drake May is the best quarterback of college football this year. Without a doubt, he's the best freshman player. He's the best freshman quarterback. He's the best ACC quarterback. There is not a quarterback, in my opinion, that has played better ball than Drake May. I mean, yeah, you have Bo Nix, you have C.J. Stroud, you have Max Duggan. I like all 3 of them guys. I think they've played extremely good ball. But when you say a freshman has come in to multiple tough environments, I mean, it's hard to make that transition between high school and college. And you especially do it in the ACC on-road games. I mean, he put up only 10 incompletions and 5 touchdowns to Pitt. Yes, Pitt might not be the best team in the country, but to able to perform like that as a freshman is insane. He is extremely good. I think he is the best quarterback of college football. But anyways, so when it comes to the ACC, like I mentioned just a minute ago, it's on Clemson's shoulders, just like how the Big 12's on TCU's shoulders. And I know a lot of people probably aren't going to like that take. But if Clemson loses one game, it doesn't matter who it's to, if it's to a ranked team or not, for any remainder games of the season. The ACC will not be put in. People are already hating Clemson. They already don't like them. I just feel like even though Clemson has beat top-ranked, top 25 teams, these top 25 teams are, falling out. They're losing games, and they're becoming unranked. I mean, you just seen it last week with Wake Forest and Louisville. Louisville was able to outshoot Wake Forest, and Wake Forest nearly beat Clemson. So it's like, really, how good are these ACC teams if they're able to lose to a under 500 team, but if Clemson loses and they also lose the ACC championship, North Carolina's not going to get in with one loss. I don't believe. If Clemson loses one game but wins the ACC championship, I don't think Clemson's going to get in with one loss, because you're going to have to take into consideration you're going to then have a one-loss Oregon team whose only loss would be to Georgia if they win the Pac-12. You're then going to have, in best case scenario, a one-loss Alabama and a one-loss Georgia. Or best case scenario, you're going to have an undefeated Georgia team and a 2-loss Alabama team in the SEC championship. So you're not going to have to face Alabama and worry if they're going to get in. But then you're going to have to worry about Tennessee. Are they still going to consider SEC? Everyone else, basically, you got to win out and win your championship in order to get put in. Oregon is probably the only exception to this rule. I don't see USC getting in even if they, win out. They lost to Arizona. I don't see them getting in. Granted, Oregon, I think, is the only exception to this rule if you're a one-loss team, because when you think about it, if they're a one-loss team, that means they lost and Georgia wins out. They win against Tennessee. They beat Alabama. That means Oregon lost to the SEC championship, SEC champion, and that team went undefeated. So Oregon's probably going to get in. Like I was saying, if TCU loses one, Clemson loses one, they're both automatically out. And Ohio State or Michigan, if they win out, one of those teams are going to get in. Whoever wins out. Whoever wins the SEC is in. Now, worst case scenario when it comes to college football playoffs, you have a 2-loss Big 12 team. You have a 2-loss Pac-12 team. You got a 1-loss Big 12 team. You got a 1-loss ACC team. And then you have a 1-loss Alabama who won the championship, a 1-loss Georgia who lost to Alabama, and a 1-loss Tennessee who lost to Georgia. So then the committee is going to have to look, all right, Ohio State or Michigan, whoever the case is in because they won their respective conference. And then Alabama's in because they won their respective conference. And then, Georgia's going to get put in because they're runner-ups and their only loss is to Alabama. So then it comes down to, are you going to put in a 1-loss Clemson, a 1-loss Tennessee, a 1-loss TCU, or even a 1-loss Michigan team if they consider them? And I think Tennessee's resume is going to be too good, and their offense is going to have too good of a portfolio to pass up to put in the playoffs. And you're going to generate money from putting 3 SEC teams into the playoffs. Especially when, Hendon Hooker is playing as good as he's playing. And if he wins the Heisman, you're definitely going to put Tennessee in the playoffs if that's the scenario. I mean, just think about the potential money grab that you're going to get from putting them in the playoffs. And you can honestly even arrange it in so way you have Ohio